Greetings to my fellow peace blunderers, and today we're talking about a crucial endgame idea, which is not endgame theory per se. That's why it's going to be easy to understand and there will be no need for memorization. Understanding this idea can sometimes even help you win or draw seemingly unwinnable or undrawable games, as I will show you in one example later on. The idea in question revolves around passed pawns and pieces that are supporting and or blockading them. To wrap your mind around what I'm talking about, please look at the board that you're seeing on your screens right now. Now, this is not a real position because with white to move, it's just mate and one. This is not a real position, this is just a study. Most of you should already know, either from studying or from experience, that sometimes even when you have an extra passed pawn, it doesn't guarantee you a win. And those could be different positions. Those could be king and pawn versus king, king knight pawn versus king knight, king bishop pawn versus king bishop, etc, etc. Now, when you're the side with less material and playing for a draw, usually the way you achieve that draw is that you blockade that passed pawn the opponent has got. And more often than not, you do it with the king. However, in some positions, your king, as well as your opponent's king, can be very far away from that passed pawn we're trying to blockade, and at the same time, that passed pawn that our opponent is trying to promote. And that obviously means that it is our other piece now that has to do the blockading, not the king, because it's too far away. Now, the wonderful news in this case is that knights, bishops, and rooks can all stop your opponent's passed pawn as well as their piece, provided that the position we're talking about in general is a position where you have the same pieces, like knight pawn against knight, bishop and pawn against bishop, rook and pawn against rook. Knight and pawn by themselves will never be able to overpower a well-placed blockading knight. Same with the bishops, same with the rooks. Now, let me show you what I actually mean. Look at the left side of the board where we have the knights. Please look at these as three different positions, all right? They're just on the same board, but these are supposed to be three different positions. I'm just lazy and it's Christmas time. Just bloody give me a break. Okay, so when we look at the knight's position, obviously the b6 pawn cannot move because it's blockaded by this knight. And if white decided to somehow dislodge that knight with something like knight a5, trying to attack the knight, ask questions of it, obviously this is not going to work because the knight is just going to be captured, because the knights obviously can attack each other. Also, this idea doesn't even work as a decoy, because if we try to promote now that the pawn has been unblockaded with b7, the knight will come back to b7 and just capture the pawn. As you can guess, the same with the bishops. The e6 pawn is blocked, and trying to dislodge that bishop on e7 or something like bishop c5, attacking it will result in a disaster because the bishop will be obviously captured. And again, as a decoy, it doesn't work either, because trying to promote with e7 will result in bishop takes e7, and now both the bishop and the pawn are gone. And with the rooks, it's even more obvious, because should your rook leave the g-file from where it's protecting the g6 pawn, for example, rook f3, trying to maybe play rook f7, something that doesn't work, but okay, the opponent is just going to capture your passed pawn with rook takes g6, and now your passed pawn is gone again. So yeah, again, I hope by now you understand that knights, bishops, and rooks cannot possibly remove well-placed blockades on their own, right? Right. By now you might actually think like, wait, what's that bloody false advertising? Am I watching an Amazon Prime trailer? Like, the title literally says queens and passed pawns, and I haven't seen one single queen just yet. Well, it's a great thing that she didn't get fazed by the title and stayed up until this point, because now we're coming to the core idea. We're coming to the good stuff. Now, queens, on the other hand, can successfully and single-handedly remove blockades. And the maneuver you're going to use to do that, you can see right now on your screen. Remember, this is a dummy position, it's a study, it's not a real position, it's just there to showcase what you need to do. Now, let me really quickly go back to board 1, where we had all the other pieces, and let's remember what problems we had with them. It was either our piece that we were trying to remove the blockade with was getting captured, like with the knight or with the bishop. That's problem 1. Or problem 2, when we tried to remove the blockade with the rook, the pawn got captured. With the queens, you can solve both at the same time. Watch me. Queen b5, moving closer to the pawn and still protecting it from b5. It's still protecting it. Let's play a dummy move like king g4, for example. Now, queen c5, still protecting the pawn. King h4. Now, the key move is queen c7. The queen on c7 is still protecting the pawn, yet again, and attacking the queen on b7 at the same time. And the queen is also defended by that pawn. So all of the problems are solved. And now it really doesn't matter what happens. Black can take the queen and then the pawn recaptures and queens. Or black can, I don't know, go to a6, b7, and we still easily queen a5, b8, queens, and wins. Now, why is this knowledge important? It's very simple, actually. When you have only queens and pawns left, and the kings, of course, left on the board, something in your head, assuming you have a brain, must tell you, okay, it's just the queens left. It means that passed pawns are going to be even stronger than usual. And now let me show you what this stronger than usual can actually mean in a real game. Let's take a look at this amazing position where we as white are facing not one, but 2 extra connected passed pawns. And it does, at first glance, look really dire for white, but using what we have just learned, we can actually save this game. Again, look at the position. We have just queens, pawns, and kings left on the board. The kings are practically in the corners, very far away from this area right here. This means that if we somehow managed to create a passed pawn, with the kings being completely irrelevant, just too far away, our queen and our passed pawn that we will create will be able to overpower the lonely black queen. And this is where we start thinking, okay, so I know I need to create a passer somehow. Can I do that? I don't really care what happens as long as I get one. And the answer is that you can do it. Well, if you couldn't, I wouldn't be showing you this position now, would I? And we do that throwing one more pawn down out the window, like 2 pawns, 3 pawns down, doesn't matter, with b6. And here really only 2 moves are deserving of being looked at. The worst one is queen takes b6, because then we take on b6, a takes b6, and we easily promote, so that's an easy one. The essential one, and the harder one, of course, is a takes b6, and this is where we're going to flex our muscles and show everything we have learned so far. It is time to replicate that maneuver that I was showing you a couple of minutes earlier in the previous study. Queen a4, getting behind the passed pawn, trying to promote it. Now queen a7, obviously attempting to blockade, but as we already know, that queen blockade ain't gonna last. Just like my patience in a post office queue a couple of days before Christmas. Anyway, now we're starting our maneuver with a nifty check, queen e8 check. Now this is necessary so that we can swing our queen to another part of the board basically for free, because it's check, and the opponent has to address the king problem with king g7. And now we get to complete our maneuver with queen c8, where it's defending the pawn and is about to step onto b7 to remove the blockade. The opponent doesn't really have much else to do other than trying to activate his queen a little bit more with b5. Queen b7 as advertised, finally removing the blockade. Queen d4, a7. We are queening, and with this we're saving ourselves from a loss. Sadly, it's not going to be a win, because if black is paying attention, they do have a perpetual that is going to force a draw. Of course, if it wasn't for that perpetual, we would easily have won with 2 queens on the board, with queen a1 check, king h2, queen e5 check, king h1, queen a1 check, king h2, and it's basically going to be repetition very soon. I'm just going to go through that, even if we try to play our moves a little bit differently. Again, queen e1 check, king h2, queen e5 check is going to force repetition. Maybe a partially anticlimactic finale to what might have been a blistering win, but hey, a draw is much better than a loss. To summarize, when you've got queens, pawns and kings left on the board, when kings are not really in the picture, think about creating passed pawns, maybe even through sacrificing some of the material that we did here with b6, and try and play for a win or play for a draw if you're losing. Like here, you never know what can happen. So yeah, if you just so happened to find this video useful, please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays, Fridays and Sundays usually. Find me on chess.com, join our Discord, all that good stuff. And I'm going to talk to you very soon, my favorite unintentional gambiters. Love you all. See you in the next one.